The sun, she rises out of the sea, and she holds the sky in her wings. My mother remembers the time she was free, and she closes her eye as she sings. My sister says, "Come, it's time to fly." But how much of the sky is mine, sis? How much of the sky is mine? Fast on the wind, I'm an angel in flight, and my sister's there at my side. Our father comes diving at speed from the height, talons out, body bruising, spitting pride. I told you before, now get ye behind, this much of the sky is mine, kids. This much of the sky is mine. There's blood on her shoulder, and a wing is lame. My sister falls through the trees. Our father climbs like a greedy flame and sings to all that he sees. None of you can reach to the heights I'm flying. All of this sky is mine, oh yeah. All of this sky is mine. Good afternoon. Thanks for watching Poetry Show number 18. That was a poem called How Much of the Sky is Mine. Touches on some of the themes that are going to come up in today's readings of difficult relations with mothers and fathers, between mothers and fathers, between men and women. There's some reference to abuse, domestic abuse in some of these. Nothing extremely heavy, I don't think, but there's always a great well of stuff behind the simplest of mentions. But I hope to throw in some more positive, gentler ones as well. And I've got a special guest reading. She can't read them. I'm reading her poems for her. So hello. How Much of the Sky is Mine? That one was from 4 years ago, 2017. 40 years before that, I wrote this one. Fairly naive, fairly simplistic, but called Muddle. Muddle sat in a huddle and wondered whether to love him or not. He was so dashing and clever and handsome, and only hit her now and again when the dinner wasn't hot. Muddle always got a cuddle, which only hurt the bruises a bit. And if she was clever, he'd leave her a fiver from her wages to spend on him. Muddle did not know what to do. So she did what he told her, when he told her. Muddle would sit in her puddle of beer and mud and tears and blood and count herself lucky that he came in at night. Muddle sat in a huddle and thought, it'll do. From 1987 that was written. I hope you pray that circumstances have changed since and things are easier for some to at least get out. I started to write this poem because I felt you in the street, and your pacing was measured, too neat to be random walking, too full of, I'll show them what I'm capable of. It showed in your feet. And I started to write this because your mood was strange, because the timing of your food was rearranged, and I started to write because the heat has come on at a different time, and the door is open and the light's on that hadn't been before I went to bed, and you're lying crisp on the sheet. And I started to write because more and more I'm learning how fearsome you can be, hand placed where I did not ask it to be, and eyes full of so much you have in store for me. I'd just stop writing, crazy to say no, to keep you out, to say go. I started to write this poem in the hope you'd see. Witness. Vulnerable baby, shown how vulnerable their mum is to their dad's own vulnerability. She's a soft side beneath the carapace, but he's already inside. Tender fire burning, tender fire, baby's crying. Get off her with your need, get off her. She's a child too, just like me, you. None of us ready to have skin. None of us ready to take a breath in. When none of us are clothed, what do we think to steal to keep ourselves warm? There were tensions in my own family. It never got to be as harsh as I know it has been for others. Definitely it could be characterised as bullying, hectoring, that sort of thing. But you get to see the horrible mix of vulnerabilities that gives rise to such a thing. The interlocking needs, which allows one to prey upon someone not so able to stand up against. There's a thing in astrology, you know, how the sun of each person is at a certain point in the heavens when they're born. And there's said to be a relationship if the sun of two people are at opposite ends of the circle. It's called an opposition. And in one sense, it could be seen as the other person being so opposite to you that you find them irresistible. Although it could also be that at other times that opposition could mean this person is not at all like me. And there's another relationship at 90 degrees. Both of all these are called harsh ones. It's a square, which is where the two energies come in at right angles and can really jar and bash up against each other. I don't know if that will make any clearer. This poem called T-Square. The fact he was my father is important only as everything. I mean, I wasn't there at the time. Was he willing? Was she? I wasn't. Still, we all snapped into place. There were two suns in this sky, opposite sides. The last thing they needed was a right angle, triangle, my angle. Still, to put them into verse. Takes all the poetry out. Said previous wasn't one called I Started to Write, and this one has a similar title. It's called I'm Writing. I had some life I held on to. Tried to take it with me. It doesn't work. It keeps you from the door. Pale as teeth, she stood in hallways, thin arms shaking, something precious, tender in them gleaming. When she loosed it up, it was little drops of all that made her happy, bouncing into walls and floors and to the sky, and in them just one moment with her father, a smile, one I'd never seen her carry. But it wasn't her dad. The face was drawn with a child's hand that would grow into an artist's and then surrender up her pen. It doesn't work. You need it here. I left it for you. I'm writing, Mum. I'm writing. I didn't realise until I had to prepare a new eulogy for my mum when she died that she had written poetry. I always assumed that whatever writing ability came from my dad's, but my dad, I never knew, as far as I know, didn't write poetry. He translated stuff, and he was a critic, a journalist. So to find that the poetry may have come from my mother was quite a surprise, and something I'm rather glad of. Now, if you've watched before, you'll know that at some point in the reading, I turn to my big pile of poetry books that I own by friends and choose one to read some poems from. So a friend of mine, and it's no different now, because I can't have a special guest unless I read their poems myself. And today it's my friend, her name is Sarah Leavesley, although she's written here as S.A. Leavesley. And she's a number of books out already. This is her most recent one, I think. How to Grow Matches, published by Against the Grain. Met her in Worcester. Saw her reading at some of the open mic nights. And we've both since published by Arachne, so I've seen her again at Arachne events. And these are a couple of, I think, wonderful poems from her book, How to Grow Matches. One of them, this is the first, it's called, it's the title poem, How to Grow Matches. Take the long matchsticks, those little pink-tipped bulrushes, those Gretel's stepmum might strike to light her oven. Snap one, like a sharp blow sideways behind a man's knees. Then another, and another, for each jibe or slight. Note how easily the wood splits after years of hidden anger. The felled forest at your feet, and still the pile grows. They the toppled pieces against each other's thinness, rested on crumpled paper. Now you have a bonfire. Don't think of Moses, not Guy Fawkes or Jeanne d'Arc, but of waking every day to stroke your curves into those clothes, hip sways and lip expressions condoned for your office as a woman. Recall somewhat the instances in folklore and history where of women's fire starters, of which I think there are a few instances in the 17th century and thereabouts. Women taking matches to everything. And this is another lovely poem, I think, called His Secret Daughter. His mug handle is the first thing she brûles. The gold melts away like chocolate, cools smoother than coins. She slips the nuggets in her pocket, relishes their dying heat. Black weave frays from singed holes. Dad was a jeweller, she lies, as the pawnbroker counts out their weight in used fivers. Her natural inheritance, nose, eyes, the tight-lipped Midas smile, overshadowed by her dad's fingerprint trail. Front door, hall, then up their banister and into her mum's room. After their deaths, she prizes off his prints. She exchanges each trace for trinkets, fills the house with synthetic colour. Then that final apple welded to its branch. She pulls it and throws. Glass shatters, unburied sharp fragments glisten in the shivering grass. Only crumpled cash left. She stands, spent, ash-haired, but for one curl of gold dangling like loose thread. Scissors tremble in her hand. His Secret Daughter. Those two from How to Grow Matches by S.A. Leavesley, Sarah Leavesley. And I'll post the details of that in the comments shortly. This is one I wrote at the winter solstice, where the sun, as mentioned in the very first poem, the sun is at her lowest and her weakest. And we're all waiting for that moment to come when she begins to grow again. It always crosses my mind now, though, that although we look forward to the summer, there's a certain element of fear with how things are climatically. That she might actually burn too hot. She might actually harm us as she gets higher and the sky gets stronger. This poem's called Return. The solstice moment passed this morning. Dawn is surprised. Still here then, yes. A beautiful old sun with dangling skin, slightly dry, drawn back and proud. She tips a wink to the stubborn girl. Don't be afraid of your curves, in or out. Christmas is weeping like a TV celebrity, with the volume turned down. There is food to be ate, and a silence to own as if all the noise in the world has gone elsewhere, perhaps to hear where a comfort is needed. It's all right. Perhaps she will be too strong, too bright. Perhaps it's just that we ignored her all this time. I want to put in a couple that I hope are a bit gentler, a bit kinder, a bit happier about relationships. 2 instances of intimacy. Your blood sat on me happy. Your blood sat on me happy, like a cool cling, bright, running down my dips, gleaming where I stood. And it was like gold. This was like every release into freedom. Some lipped onto my belly, and you hid into the pillow till I smiled, still jumping, with my blood inside and yours without. And I cannot let mine go, so this gentle slide of blood, our fingers dabbing, is a miracle to me. Have I any on my chin? I ask. And this one's called Mother, but not my mother. A mother I knew because she was mother to my child. With my head upon your belly, deflated now, raspberry rippled, unevenly filled, thin silver forest growing over the way. Tenderly daring to place my weight, I hear, amongst the gassy rearrangings and the shuddering pulse, the same blood still calling to my own spongy membrane. I hear the silence that brought heart out of nothing, out of our thought, that did for the elastic. I hear the home from which the mother of evictions pushed, prodded, squeezed, expelled into most exquisite roar. How are we out there? Just going to see if I can see any messages, anything like that. I can't always tell from my gizmos. Sometimes it lets me know. It's not me. No clue at present. It might be dozens of you watching, there might be none of you. I've no way of knowing. Carry on anyway. Those earlier ones, a fair bit about tensions between parents, tensions between children and parents. Break in transmission. Our father pushed the telly backwards off the stand. broke our stare against the wall. And our outrage broke over this drunken man, walking in like a ghost, too unreal to be there, or doing that, to push the telly from the stand, glaring backwards to the floor. It didn't break. We were too resilient for that, and more. And neither did the silence we were staring to ignore. So mixed feelings about my own dad. But I wrote this one very shortly after he died. My father. The door shuts. Silence settles in. Books surround me, shelf upon shelf. The first still moment since hearing the news. The moment I felt your desire to tell, like space condensing, a touch on my shoulder, that all is okay, that all is farewell. From wherever you are, the string is released. My share of your soul shudders into me. The door is open to clear the sooted air. Books surround me, shelf upon shelf, stained with smoke, the page turned orange, like the nicotine fingers of your writer's hands. The place where you fell, with your one saucepanful of water, the tap left running, a blackened shell. From wherever you are, the water runs free. My share of your beauty pours over me. The door is closed. Silence lives here. The box enfolds you. The sheet is clear, it kisses your brow, the tip of your nose. The face beneath it is mine to supply, is mine. I speak the words I know to speak. Goodbye, farewell, and safely find your way to wherever you are, both now free. No need to confront what we never were or couldn't be. Except once in the doorway, silence was ambushed by a simple, I love you. It was as if I had punched you, and the shudder crack of his impact buckled the threshold and thundered through your eye like a stroke in reverse. And scared of your smile, I ran, so as not to see my father's nakedness. The door was open, you passed through, into silence, leaving your books, shelf upon shelf, and even now I cannot read them. No matter. No matter that we square. Wherever we are, our words speak freely. The gift of your father, you gifted to me. My dad died in a fire quite a while ago now. So the reference to him with his one saucepan of water is a reference to him. His efforts to put out the fire, thinking he could get on top of that. It's very characteristic of him. As is the point of ignition being a cigarette in bed. Extremely characterful. And the reference to the cloth over his face was because when he was lying in his coffin, the undertakers advised me not to look at the damage that had been done, and so they covered him with the face. They covered with the cloth. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. 5 more I'd like to read to you. They're not long ones, but they continue some of the themes that we've had through the first earlier ones of these. This is one called See What Happens When You Don't Sleep. Still tonight. It won't be noticed. Time sliding over. The cliff edge is quiet. Still tonight. The air is taking a break, settled like cat. Still this moment. No falling asleep, since that implies movement. Still this moment. This night. This age that I'll never surpass. Hair is a panic. How it makes my heart race. Is it me at 1,000 beats, sir? Need it to be this still. Hand in every place, too full of a dichotomy. Soon is the lie you don't believe still tonight. Little fires. Water. Water will tell you if you're breathing in or out. So I'm kicking time down the stairs just to find direction where to go. It refers to the stillness of small hours, and it's in such a stillness that these 3 poems occurred. The first called Premonition. I saw my grandmother recently. Now she's as old as I. She was waving and friendly, promising home. Said when I got there, I'd not be alone. I hadn't seen her in such a long time. A baby. I wonder how I knew she was mine. Premonition. And my mother, she died a couple of years ago now. But I found I wrote this one the year before then. And I put it after the Premonition poem. I have no idea whether it's actually connected or not. It just feels like a connection to me. When she passed. This particular moment of the night, you said, wake. No word, no hand, no light, no stir. A body rising from waters, eyes surplus to use. gentle realization of rain, cold as a guiding hand, long moment allowed by the scent of safety, the threat of coming round like scar tissue stretching, when heartbeat interposes, breath takes a little shake, depth of darkness still intimates a fall. Who the presence watching? Who the fool? Will this still exist in morning? Long hours mouth to mouth in CPR, close the eyes, nothing's gone. She just wanted to remember you while she could. After she died, sometime after, I had a vision of her stepping off a boat on the other side of the river with her sister, who died also recently, and the two of them going to greet their dad, who they'd not seen for many, many years, who had not been a large part of their life. And there's something of that reconciliation on the other side, and also of being met by people before on the other side. And there's also a sense of being visited again by those who've gone. This one's called Ghost Dad. When you came to stand above my bed, I was sitting up, asleep. I saw you, out of shadow, clear. I said, to the burnt stump upon your shoulders, draped in black cloth, should I fear you, or should I love you? Your head fell in that fire. I felt it best I did not see you then. I did not know it, you, intruder in the hallway. I called to Odin. Did you hear? To wake myself. You've not been back since. And this, the last, called Fore-farers. Before I do that, I want to thank you so much for listening and watching, giving me your ear. I hope you're well wherever you are. I hope things are good for you. I hope things are hopeful for you. The video for this will be on the timeline after if you want to watch it back, and I'll publish the set list amongst the comments, and I'll also put a link to the previous readings if you fancy a look. My guest again, just to remind you, is Sarah Leavesley, How to Grow Matches, and this is the last. The Old English have a word for the dead. Many words, but this one is too called. So they call fore-farers, the fore-farers. Those who have gone forth, those who have gone before. Fore-farers. This may not be my grief, like a stone gushing. This may be from a world beyond. There were people here, had no tongue. Someone chose the first word. They were catching up ever since. And those who came before me, call them big mother, big father, failed by clever language, knowing only what they allowed. This may not be my grief, carried, played through my bones.